And they've used the F-55, I think it was one of the first times for this show. And this actually was shot in Switzerland with a lot of handheld work, which was desired for that specific story. And they shot as well with available light as well as with super high contrast shots in sodium lights. So similar to what you've seen in the second part, there was still a little greenish tint to that lighting condition because it was coming from the street lights. You know them. They're other than perfect in terms of their spectrum. So they were using also available light on a railway track, because one of the accidents that happens there happens on a railway track. So you can of course use this camera as any other camera, and as I mentioned before, if you know your new stock, like the 55 stock I call it, and you know your dynamic range, I think you will be happy with the results. It's just tested like you will test any other new stock that you feel comfortable. And since the dynamic range of these cameras is pretty serious, I think you can do most of your work. I mean, it's actually pretty hard to find a setup I figured out to have 14 stock. It's not easy. In an average production. You can do it, you know that, I don't have to tell you, but if you do, let's say, television series, or even for most of the cinema production I was involved, there were little 14 stops locations actually. On a documentary it's different. I think you can have, I think that the real limits you can reach easily with a documentary stop shoot. Because if you go from the inside to the outside and you have to compensate in a way, but you manage to do well because you're alone, you know that if you shoot documentaries there's non-controlled situation. There you might really gain something of this high latitude. But let's say if you're on a stage or if you on a regular, even TV shows, usually from my experience it's pretty hard to actually get to the limit. But the good thing is, if you have that extra headroom, like sunlight, let's say you have a partly cloudy sky, and within your take, one cloud gets off. Of course, you know all that. Then you reach that limit because you set your exposure to the more darker setting before, and then you may overexpose because you don't want to change it during the shot. And that's where you get to that. That's where you really see what the camera can do for you. Is it any helpful? Some more? So if you want further information, I would like to invite you to grab one of these papers. As well, there is a training center in Pinewood now, which offers training courses as well as online trainings. So to get to that information, you can just fill out that card. We will also have it outside later on. It's free. It's, at least the online courses are not paid. So we can get into more details about that. Okay.
A question on the side. You mentioned initially that you use other cameras besides Sony. Can you make a confession about your favorite? I know it's a tricky situation. Maybe there is a camera which performs better in certain cases than another one. Is it size that's a critical component, or?
Honestly, even if I wouldn't be here for Sony, I couldn't give you a proper answer. The thing is, I try when I'm invited to a show, and they ask me how do we do it, or what do you recommend to do. I need to know what is what are the circumstances you want to shoot. I don't like to go and say I have good experience with the Alexa, let's go with Alexa. Or I had good experience with the F-55, let's go with the F-55. I need to know, is there, like corner points, is it a lot of documentary style shooting? Does it has to be lightweight? Is it a lot of handheld? Is it is it visual effects, intense work? Is it, like the shots on the car? Does it has to be compact, or is size not a big issue? Look at that camera, and it's a different story to mount that on the side of a camera, like a Red Dragon or a Red Epic, or even if you go underwater, if you go 3D, if you go big screen, if you go television, there are so many reasons, and in the end there's a producer involved, and the producer says, okay, we don't have any money, so you have to fight. I think you know that situation. So it's always a compromise, and my approach is to show you some tools that you to pick for some shows. And I think, for example, I'll give you a different example. There's a camera called Alexa M, which is a kind of cut in pieces Alexa. It has some advantages, but it also can be a really pain. And I really like the images that they get of it, but it is optimized for what we were doing with it. For example, we did a 3D movie, so the smaller size of the heads did gain something, but of course we were stuck to a cable. So let's say these cameras, the F65 is a big camera. You can't do everything with it. But if you ever saw it in the grading room, I think you're gonna like it. So if you need, or if your preference is a certain image quality, you want to have details. There are people that don't want to see details, so they blur. They use wide open stop, as you've seen. In most of the examples, they used wide open just to have that the look they were looking for. They used several lenses to create a certain look, and they behave probably similar on most of the cameras, but they are looking for a specific look. So if we talk about the look, we find the right camera for you. And if it's a Sony camera or not, I can't tell now, honestly. I don't want to. I like the color science, what they do on ARRI. It's amazing. But since we are shooting log, it's more thing that can happen later as well, or raw. And that's what my advantages I see in this technology is actually that they understood now that you want to have control about your images. And if you shoot raw, for example, you have a lot of choices to go later. But even if you go log, it's still such a powerful recording now with very efficient way of doing. I think the Sony way is more efficient than others, but it doesn't need to be better than this way. It's just more efficient. So you have a lot of flexibility. And I don't know how you work. For example, in Germany, there's a lot of rental houses supplying equipment for productions. How is it in Greece? Is it more owner-operator, or do you have lots of rental houses as well? Both. Yeah, both? So there's a different approach if you buy a camera for a rental house, or if you own it. So if you buy yourself a camera because you do a lot of work, you might consider, money and what you get for that money. So there's a camera for this market, I'm pretty sure, at Sony as well as ARRI. And you have to find your sweet spot. What's your priority? What are you working for? If you do some television work, for example, F5 is used a lot for what used to be shot on camcorders. But there's a lot of TV people now asking for that Super 35 look. So they started to use the DSLR technology or similar approaches, and it's a pain in the to work with. It's really difficult if you shoot the way you shot with a camcorder, and then you have to slim down and you do focus, and you have maybe even bigger sensors. So this maybe is a solution that it's in between. You can have efficient broadcast style recording as well as a film style look. Could be a solution for such a thing.
Also, another question, if I may. You mentioned that the raw format, the camera's output, the F55 and the F65, have a significant advantage over the other raw formats as in file size. Am I right about that?
Well, if it's significant or not, you can judge. But the thing is, if you do uncompressed raw, which is from some people, of course, consider the true raw because it didn't do anything to the data. You have to deal with a huge amount of data. So let's say ARRI raw as an example is 2.8K raw uncompressed, and there is one frame is about 8 megabytes. So if you count it to, let's say, 1 hour, you end up with a lot of stuff. And let's say it's similar to ARRI raw, but if you go with an 8K camera, it's compressed. You can have the same amount of data, but you have more pixels. So it's an approach of an engineer to make it more efficient, and you will immediately see it in your budget. It's just handling files. So I don't say it's better or worse, because of course you will find maybe something which is bad because it's not uncompressed. From my experience, the way they deal with it, it's very efficient. It's just a balance of what you need to make movies happen, and the quality is probably really good. So.
And the last one, if I may. Have you had a personal experience with the new XAVC codec?
I had one in the beginning, which was not good. The version 1.0 had some flaws. It's solved now, and I would easily compare it with the ProRes 42 easily, because it's a very similar compression scheme, as well as the visual results are, I would say, identical. If you want to do 444, let's say for a chroma key work, you can go SSDP, which is the HDCAM SR, and that's a proven format that is really good for chroma key work. The downside is it's HD only. So if you want to do chroma key, you can now pick going HD 422 with this camera, or maybe 4K 422, and then due to the fact that you're oversampling, you still get really good results on the chroma key, even though it's not a 444 4K. But again, you can still have it on one card. It's a card, it's ready to play back, it plays back on a laptop computer. It's supported by all the editing systems now natively. Even on the log side, you can apply lookup tables within, let's say, Premiere, and so it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I have to cut. Yeah, everyone's waving. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it wasn't too numberish. And there's one thing you might address. It is my very last thing. If you want to catch up, there is actually something which is a Twitter channel. And it's not because I like social media so much, but actually I'm getting a lot of news out of that. So if you want to catch the latest news, follow us. And again, thank you for having us here.